Sounds good. God, I'm tired.
Same.
And we are live. Welcome to the NBA Strategy Show. It is Wednesday, February 9th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Adam Scherer, and we are brought to you by No House Advantage. 6-game slate going on today, so a little bit smaller than what we had yesterday. We got a few teams on a back-to-back that will really complicate matters. We've got a few that are incredibly short-handed that will really bring the value. It's a pretty wild slate on the day before the trade deadline. So before we get started, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Adam, how did it shake out for you on Tuesday's slate?
Ended up breaking even, but did it in like a difficult way. Got destroyed on the early slate, got second on the night slate to get back to even. So, yeah, overall it worked out okay.
That'll work. You and I got a bit of a trade at the ass end of our strategy show yesterday. And that just seemed like it was pretty crazy. We did not know that it was about to get even crazier. Give me your abridged thoughts on Sacramento Kings and Indiana Pacers swapping Tyrese Halliburton and Domantas Sabonis.
I don't really know what the Kings are doing. I'm like Sabonis is really good and all that, but I don't think he's the guy that you like build around to be a contender long term. And it's kind of just like they think they're going for it this year. Yeah. Or something, but they're like going for the play-in game. So it's just really weird to me. I don't know. I mean, I guess like you know a lot more about contracts than I do. I guess like getting off Field's contract, I've read was a good thing, maybe. But
I mean, he's basically properly paid. He's got 2 more years at like 19 million and 18 million. That's, about the going rate for a shooter that could fit just about anywhere.
Right.
There's not a lot of dead money on that deal.
Yeah, it's just really weird to me. I mostly just enjoyed yesterday. Like everybody, whether it's DFS people or actual basketball people or whatever, are tweeting, like, what the hell are the Kings doing? And then the like two Kings beat writers I follow are just like, this is why it's a great deal for the Kings.
Yeah. And you said it perfect. Like, Sabonis is good. He's a really good basketball player. I don't think that his skill set is tailor-made to the latter rounds of the playoffs. I think he gets into some trouble when he has to defend and the spacing is a little bit different. I assume that they're going to be trying to trade Richaun Holmes here. You cannot be playing Sabonis. If you didn't think Sabonis and Turner could work, Sabonis and Holmes works worse than that by a long shot. So Holmes didn't play yesterday. We could talk about that a little bit when we get to the Sacramento section. I think it's going to be wild for these next 2 days. 7 games tomorrow too. So, but this is the last one where, at least for the trade deadline tomorrow, we know everything that happens before the deadline starts. Now, it might be craziness for the 7 games that we have, but all those trades happen by 3:00. Today, all bets are off. Those trades could happen at 6:59 tonight if they needed to. This is going to be fun. I think we're going to have either a lot to talk about throughout this show or just a staggering amount of nothing to talk about. We'll find out when we get there. Let's kick it off right now. San Antonio Spurs, 6.5-point underdogs in Cleveland, 217 total. On the Spurs side, Q tags on Lonnie Walker and Trey Jones. On the Cleveland Cavaliers side, we have a Q tag on Darius Garland, still no Lauri Markkanen, and evidently Karis LeVert available for this one. Let's start on the San Antonio side. DeJounte Murray, 17% owned on FanDuel. Derek White, 12% owned on DraftKings. No one else makes it into double digits here. I assume we're on the same page that Walker and Trey Jones, if potentially, are both in for you right now, since it's just Q tags for one-off spots. I don't see a lot to like here for San Antonio.
Yeah, it's pretty much just the normal guys for me. DeJounte Murray at 10-6 always looks good. The matchup against Cleveland certainly difficult. It's not a spot that you're like really excited to get to or anything, but you know the type of ceiling you're getting with Murray. Jakob Poeltl, I assume, plays 32 minutes or so. He's over a fantasy point per minute guy. I think he's also basically correctly priced at 7,500. Same for Derek White. I assume he's going to play around 32 minutes. 6,100 is about where he should be. So I think any of those three guys are fine. I don't really see them as priorities in this spot. Beyond that, though, I don't see much of anything. Like, I have a hard time paying 6,200 for Keldon Johnson. I have a hard time getting to, if Lonnie Walker is in, I have a hard time getting to $4,100 of a sell here. So I think it's pretty much just those main three.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page here. It's no real priorities, especially on a slate where there are some teams that are overwhelming priorities, guys that you can't even comp to some of these San Antonio guys. So that's where it starts to get tricky. Like, I have Keldon Johnson on FanDuel as my favorite option, 6,200, as you mentioned, not the best price in the world, but he does have small forward, power forward, just kind of fits in a little bit better, plays enough minutes to get by, not a ton of ownership. So certainly a GPP style play, but even that's not a giant priority to me. It's a tough matchup, obviously great rim protection coming from Cleveland. I think we're going to have a lot more to talk about on the Cleveland side of this one. So we're good on San Antonio?
Yeah.
Okay. For Cleveland, let's start at the top. Are we assuming Darius Garland is in for this one?
For now, I have him in. I don't know one way or the other.
I have him in as well. 8,100 on FanDuel, 8,400 on DraftKings. To me, he's just a guy today. I gave him his normal run. I'm not excited or not excited. He just is. I think Mobley and Allen both look really good. Now, Jared Allen is 8,100 in DraftKings and center only on DraftKings. That's not ideal. You get Mobley for 6,800. He's got the power forward eligibility. I think he's pretty clearly the best option from the DK side. But on FanDuel, these guys are only separated by $600. They both have the power forward eligibility. They're both 15 to 20% owned. So Mobley and Allen are on a completely different level on the FanDuel piece. How do you feel about the two bigs in this one?
I think that they're correctly priced too on DraftKings, like 8,100 for Allen. You know the type of ceiling he gives you. I mean, you can go out there and get 15 rebounds, 15 points, a couple of blocks. But on average, 8,100 is probably even a little bit too expensive, if not like correct. Evan Mobley at 6,800, I think is easier to get to since he has power forward eligibility in addition to being a center. But I'm curious too, kind of to see if Garland is back. Like, you have to keep in mind you should have LeVert here too. taking usage. Not that Mobley's a high usage guy, but I'm kind of just interested to see how things play out in general.
Yeah, when I started looking at it this morning for the process show, I'm just going to try to treat LeVert as like Rubio in the past or Sexton in the past. And I think we just have to treat it like one of those two guys is also on the floor. No concept of how many minutes Caris LeVert plays or if he starts. I gave him 32. He's 8,700 on FanDuel, 9K on DraftKings. I don't want to say that he's not playable, but you should not be getting to any sort of large amount of LeVert, no matter what you think he's doing today. And even if you think he might be mildly limited in his first game, then he's even worse.
Yeah, I have a really difficult time getting to 9K LeVert. If Garland is out, then maybe, but either way, I think it's difficult. If Garland's in, I have no interest.
I completely agree. I do have a little bit of interest in Isaac Okoro. He's the flat minimum on FanDuel, 3,500 shooting guard, small forward. He's 3,700 on DraftKings, same eligibility. I don't know what ends up happening with his minutes. I think 30 still looks pretty reasonable. He is not a good fantasy point per minute guy, but at the very least, I think he's a decent point per dollar option. I don't really have much to add. It's not a priority. Just he doesn't look like absolute garbage to me.
Yeah, like he's probably a little bit underpriced from a point per dollar standpoint. It's just, how does Isaac Okoro put up a score that you really want to have? I guess he can, and I'm probably talking him into it, but like if he lands in a lineup here or there, like he's projected for 5% ownership on DraftKings. That's perfectly reasonable to me.
Agreed. That's exactly what I would say too. And then to me, Love's still a little bit too expensive, even though he has seen the increase in minutes. What's your expectation on starting lineup here?
Garland. If Garland's in, Garland, Okoro, LeVert,
Mobley Allen.
Yeah.
Who leaves the rotation for this team? Is it Lamar Stevens? Is it Rondo? Is it Dean Wade? I think one of those guys is probably just gone.
Yeah. It's tough because I don't really know what they're doing with Wade. Like he had kind of been not like out of the rotation, but he had been clearly not a priority, and the minutes were pretty scattered. And then he moved back to the starting lineup, so I don't really know. I would assume it's Stevens or Wade.
Yeah, actually, I went with Rondo. Honestly,
it could be Rondo, like LeVert staggering with Garland.
Yeah, I don't think it matters really. Like,
right.
On a day like today, there's no way we're playing whoever we think is getting 2 out of the 3 guys that we think are getting 14 minutes off the bench for the Cavs. Is not the day that matters.
Yeah, exactly. The one thing I would add is if Garland is out, I am still interested in Love at 7,100.
Sure.
Like I just think that for one, his production is very high without Garland on the floor. Maybe it does take a little bit of a hit with LeVert, but I also think that sort of opens the door for him to get a couple of extra minutes. Like if Garland is back and you have LeVert, you could very easily just see Love back to playing like 22, 23 minutes. If Garland is out, I think you continue to see 26 or so.
Okay. Interesting spot here for Cleveland. The Garland piece will be obviously the most important trickle down piece for the rest of the team. Curious to see how LeVert looks. I don't get the sense that this LeVert Allen combo or LeVert Garland combo is going to be all that fun to watch, but we'll see. I just don't want to take the ball out of Garland's hands.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how it works out because I do like the pickup for Cleveland. Like I think LeVert fills a hole for them for sure. But yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes.
Yeah, I just like we're talking about a guy that's a better distributor and a more efficient scorer. Like I don't want LeVert to get too much, but for those, 12 or call it, 14, 16 minutes where Garland's not on the floor, having a guy that's capable of handling that is going to be a big benefit.
Yeah. And to be fair, LeVert has already said that he likes playing off ball and that he's looking forward to it and stuff. So, to me, that's the big thing is LeVert coming in looking to be a complementary piece to Garland and fill that role, or is LeVert coming in looking to be the guy? And at least from what he has said, it sounds like he is accepting what he should be.
We about to find out. Anything else here for Cleveland?
Nope.
All righty. Schedule for the rest of today. Coming up at 11 a.m., we have the NFL Strategy Show Ownership Edition. At 1 p.m., we have the Jock Market NBA Show. At 2 p.m., we have the NHL Strategy Show. 4 p.m., the Yahoo NBA Show. Adam, you will be back for the NBA Deeper Dive at 5. We've got the NBA Live Before Lock show at 6. And then PGA Live Before Lock coming up at 8 o'clock. NBA ownership projections are free. PGA top golfers are free. And NHL player rankings are free. 330 people in here right now, 70 likes. Let's bump that up a bit. Let's get that number north of 100. Seems like the perfect opportunity for people to hit that thumbs up. Now we get into some true ridiculousness. The Chicago Bulls are 2-point favorites in Charlotte for Chicago. Somehow they lose even more people that are good at playing defense. No Dosunmu, concussion. We have no Ball, no Caruso, no Patrick Williams, no Derek Jones. This team is all offense right now and an offensive defense. Lots to say here, though. 33% ownership on FanDuel, 20% ownership on DraftKings for the highest owned player from Chicago. That would be Kobe White. Do you have any disagreements there? It seems like he just kind of has to fall into 30-plus minutes now.
Yeah, I mean, good matchup. Playing time should be there. No Dosunmu opens up a lot. White played almost 26 minutes last game, so I think that is a good sign. It's not like he was significantly limited in his return, and there's real question marks about his playing time here. So I still don't expect a ton of usage or anything from White. That's kind of the one issue is I still don't think there's room for him to become the Kobe White that we saw last year, where he's out there with the 23-24% usage rate. Taking the Sunmu's minutes isn't giving you usage. You're still playing with DeRozan, Vooch, and Levine. But at 5,100 against Charlotte, just being on the floor makes him look good.
Yeah, absolutely. We're on the same page there. How do you rank DeMar, Levine, and Vooch here? I think they look relatively similar on DraftKings. I think Levine is probably my preference across both sites. It's certainly my preference at 8K on FanDuel.
Yeah, I think they look pretty similar on DraftKings. I think it's DeRozan 1, Vooch 2, Levine 3, but
okay,
not if you want to argue with me, I don't have a very strong opinion there.
I put Levine ahead of Vooch just because his shooting guard's better than center, but otherwise...
I mean, he lost Ford, which sucks. But.
Yeah. I could really flip a coin between all of them. DeRozan's the guy pulling the ownership. Levine's at 6%. If we're talking about that from a GPP perspective, I probably just want to get to more Levine because I don't think that their ultimate outcomes are all that different from each other. I'd want to get to all three of them because this is a Charlotte team that is probably just going to play 6 guys, 40 minutes, and it's going to be a track meet. And I think this looks really good on the Chicago side. Are we creating anybody else of value for Chicago now that we're also losing 36 more minutes from Dosunmu?
I don't really think so. I mean, Javonte Green at 4,400 probably plays 25 to 30 minutes, somewhere in there. Against Charlotte, that means he could certainly get there, but he doesn't typically do a whole lot when he's out there. So pretty risky play, I think. Same for Troy Brown Jr., I guess, at 3,400. There's a path to him doing well, but I don't think it happens all that frequently.
I think Javonte Green looks like a comparable version to getting to Isaac Okoro today, too. Just neither one of them is going to look all that fun. One of those days, one of those guys are going to fall into a couple extra steals, and that's what's going to make them look a little bit more interesting. But to me, they're basically the same guy today. Yeah.
6% ownership coming into Green, 4.5% to Brown. But it makes sense on both of them. It's just guys where you're not actively trying to get to them. They're just landing in a lineup as the last piece.
Anything else for the Chicago Bulls?
I am just with you on, from a tournament standpoint, Levine and Vooch at sub 10% ownership. Obviously, I think DeRozan and White's ownerships are fine, but getting low ownership on those two against Charlotte is really appealing.
Yeah. Abel Ramos with the super chat said, Josh and Ship, where on Awesemo can we find exact assists, rebounds, and points projections, not just the overall fantasy score? Same exact page as the projections. You'll see it on there labeled as projected stats. So it'll show DraftKings, FanDuel, Yahoo, but there's a tab on the projections page that says projected stats, has the full stat line for each player. What else do we got going on here? So now we talk about Charlotte, and I don't even really want to bother saying who's good, who's bad. Ball, Bridges, Rozier, Oubre, PJ Washington, they're all 30 to 40% owned on FanDuel, 20 to 30% owned on DraftKings. I don't really have much else to say. You're playing all 5 of those guys in about as aggressive of a manner as you can.
Yeah, agreed. This is one of the teams, we talked about it yesterday with Brooklyn, where you kind of have to know coaching tendencies and what they do when they're shorthanded. Charlotte is the opposite of Brooklyn. Brooklyn plays everyone on their roster when they can. Charlotte just eliminates guys and condenses their rotation. So no Gordon Hayward opens up a lot of playing time here.
Yeah.
Falling salaries too. I mean, LaMelo's down to 8,800. Bridges at 7,800 is fine. Rozier at 6,900. Like, these guys are cheap. They should play a lot. The matchup is good. I don't really know how you don't love Charlotte.
Yeah, it's impossible. I think LaMelo is the best option just because he's not all that expensive and should play a ton of minutes. I didn't want to go to 40 minutes on anybody, and I feel like I still can. So I went to 38 on Ball and Bridges and Rozier, 36 to Oubre, 32 to PJ Washington. I think it's very reasonable that all of those guys play 42 minutes as well, including more for Oubre, and that they don't go to Richards and or Smith. But it's really hard to it's really hard to project a bunch of guys for 38 minutes, and then you get to the end and you're like, oh, I still have 16 left over. Right. It's just tricky, but they don't seem to care at all. This last time out, Cody Martin didn't play at all. Gordon Hayward got hurt 6 minutes into the game, and they still only played Ish Smith for 8 minutes. Everybody else played 28 or more, including LaMelo playing 44. Yep. I don't even need that upside. He should just be in a ton of stuff. So here's the question for you. Do you do anything specific with your builds for Charlotte? Are there rules that you set, or are you just kind of let it rip?
No, I think you kind of just let it rip, because the only rule that I would kind of consider would be max one of Washington Plumlee, since, you know, they kind of cut into each other. But with the rotation I'm expecting them to run, I don't even really care about that, because, like, yeah, PJ Washington's most productive minutes are without Plumlee on the floor. But at 4,900, if he's going to play 30 plus minutes, I don't really care what position he's playing most of them at. And Plumlee at 5,500, like, I think Plumlee looks like the worst of the six guys, but you can still get there. Like, I'm not overly concerned about it. So if you wanted to set a rule, I think maybe doing like max two of Oubre, Washington, Plumlee makes some sense, just because I don't think all three, if you assume that Ball, Bridges, and Rozier are all closing, then obviously only two of those other guys are closing. So that makes some sense to me, but I don't even know that I probably won't even set that, because these guys are so cheap. Like, let's say Washington doesn't close, so, and Plumlee and Oubre do. So then you're talking, what, 30 minutes for Washington, 30 minutes for Plumlee, like 38 for Oubre or something. I still don't care. Like, they're all probably getting there.
If you're looking at 5x plus 10 on the combination of Washington and Plumlee, we're talking 72 fantasy points. There's no reason that the two of them can't go for 35 apiece in, like, even just normal-ish 28 to 30 minutes.
Right.
35 is not all that difficult.
How many Hornets are you willing to play together?
It's got to be 4, right?
I still kind of think it's 3.
It should be 3. Like, I think you're just better off at 3. And I don't know that I would get to a ton of lineups just in general that were 4. I wouldn't want to stop it from happening, though.
Yeah, I mean, the reason I'm hesitating is, like, I think these guys are underpriced, but they're not free. Like, they're not. You're still talking about almost 9K for Ball, almost 8K for Bridges, 7K for Rozier. Like, you're still allocating a lot of money there, where I think there's still going to be enough good plays on this slate that, you know, you probably need them all to have, like, legitimately good games. Like, if Terry Rozier scores 34 DraftKings points, that's probably a wasted roster spot. That would be my concern. If you do play 4, I would definitely be using the rule that I've talked about before, where I'm running it back with, you know, White, Levine, Vooch, DeRozan, somebody. Because the thinking there being, again, because none of these guys are free in, like, real terms. The thinking there being that, like, if all of Bridges, Rozier, you know, Ball, Oubre have big games and the game is competitive, someone on Chicago is going nuts on their end.
Yeah. I would run my crunch, run a test, and see how many lineups I am getting for Hornets. If the answer is like 4 of 150, that's not something I'm going back to, like, try to recreate or correct or, like, put in any limit. If I find out that it's like 25, I might dig into it a little bit more to see how that's showing up. But
yeah,
if I get 2 or 3 of them, I don't think it matters at all.
Yeah, and kind of the opposite of what you were just saying. But one thing that I do in general, just for chat because they always ask this question. Like my answer is normally 3, but one thing I do pay attention to is when I crunch my my optimal lineup that I'll use like as my dummy lineup before I build anything. I do pay attention to see what's showing up. Like if if I crunch 20 lineups with no randomness or anything, and I'm just getting like 5 players from the same team in all of those lineups, I'm more willing to say, okay, I can accept like 4 from this team because they're clearly mispriced. What's probably going to happen, and I haven't crunched any sort of lineups yet. I'm thinking what probably is going to happen is you're just going to get 3 Charlotte guys in a lot of lineups, which is going to like reinforce to me that I don't really want 4.
Yeah. And the issue here with Charlotte, and the easier way to get 4, and you kind of touched on it before, we're not pulling anybody out of the bottom where we're getting like 2 new guys in the starting lineup that are 3,300 and 3,600, where at that point, they don't count in that equation of like how many guys you want to have. We're getting everybody priced around where they should be. Right. Like it's easier to probably go to 4 Blazers than it is Hornets today.
Yeah, they're just cheaper. Like when you look at, I mean, they did get priced up a bit, but like yesterday, for example, though, you had Ellaby at 3,400, you had Winslow at 3K. It was just Winslow. If Winslow gets 30 DraftKings points, you really want him in your lineup, and Winslow can fall in the 30 DraftKings points without even like taking anything away from other guys on his team.
Yep. Yeah, something to pay attention to for the rest of the day. 4 is viable. Generally speaking, 3 is the spot, and it all depends on how many games. Like on a 6-game slate, it's one question. If on a 10, I would not go to 4 Hornets.
Yeah. And it also depends on what else is on the slate. I mean, we have Portland on this slate. So that's one team where that there's going to be a lot that you can get to. You have this Minnesota-Sacramento game where there's going to be a lot of plays. You have Toronto running basically the same rotation as Charlotte. So that's, something to keep in mind too. It's just like if I have Miles Bridges, Terry Rozier, Kelly Oubre in a lineup, I'd probably rather just have Fred VanVleet than LaMelo Ball in that lineup.
Yeah, it's just easier at that point in time. You're already sort of betting against LaMelo Ball by having those other 3 guys, so go the whole way with it. Do you have a favorite Charlotte guy?
No, they all kind of. I mean, I guess LaMelo at 8,800, but they all look very good, except for Plumlee. He just looks like average good.
Yeah, it's crazy. All righty. On to Toronto, 9.5-point favorites in Oklahoma City. They are at full strength. Toronto, that is. They are the they in that comment. We have Josh Giddey in for today. No Shea, no JRE, no Wiggins, no Muscala, no Roby. So Toronto is basically just a lesser version of Charlotte today. We know that there's 5 guys that are going to get a shit ton of playing time. You should be playing all 5 of them in some sort of proportion. It's just a significantly smaller portion than it is for Charlotte.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're still getting a ton of minutes from these guys. VanVleet getting 11% ownership, LaMelo getting 31. That's a spot where I think LaMelo is the better play. But you still get that massive ceiling from VanVleet. So if you have a lineup where, you need to save a little bit in terms of ownership, VanVleet makes some sense there. Siakam with power forward eligibility still looks very good. I think those are the 2 that really stand out. But then getting some Barnes, Anunoby, Trent, I mean, they're reasonably priced for guys that are going to play 36 minutes.
Yeah, Barnes 6,400 on FanDuel is my favorite option there. He's also the highest owned guy, but it's just another spot where they really do, I think, pair well with Charlotte, where if you were going to get the way that you detailed it out with like the LaMelo to VanVleet move, just if you've already got 3 in there and you were potentially going to get a 4th Hornet, just pick the comparable Raptor in that group and you're going to be good to go because there's somebody up and down the positional spectrum.
Yeah. Couple of things in chat that I think we have time to touch on.
Sure.
Jamie Moore said, is the run back versus 4 players rule set up through stacks or groups? Go if you go into advanced options, go to groups, and then you can just go to like auto group creator, loop teams, and then you just check all of the positions, and then say like from the same team, and then for players to include, check all the positions, say from the opposite team above like 20, 25 projected points, and then you can just say if 3 or more key players are used and at least 1 from that group. So it's the loop teams tab in auto group creator. And David Porter said, I never really factor run back in much in the NBA. Yeah, I don't think you should. The only time I talk about it or think that it really matters is when you have a situation like Charlotte where conceivably you could get like if you have three guys that are all, let's say 7 to 9K, you kind of are going to need all of those guys to get like 40 plus fantasy points. And if they get 40 plus fantasy points and the game is still competitive, then chances are somebody on the other team is going off. So I'll use it there just because like I don't really like having three guys from the same team typically. So if I do, I would like to just kind of turn it into a mini game stack. But yeah, I'm not like saying, I have LaMelo, so I need Vooch or something like that.
No, it's a great detail. I'm glad you dove into that point. Do we have anything else for Toronto?
Nope.
For Oklahoma City, Giddey up to 7K on FanDuel, pulling a little bit of ownership. That's fine. Baisley, the highest owned guy for the Thunder across both sites. We see Dort pulling a little bit of ownership. I like Trey Mann for 4,900, point guard, shooting guard. Any priorities here for you from Oklahoma City today? And by the way, Pogaszewski is not with the G League team, so he should be available today.
Yeah, I wouldn't say priorities. I think that there's a bunch of guys that I don't mind getting to. Like basically all of them. But Giddey, Dort, Baisley, those guys all look good. It's just hard to call them priorities when they're not on Charlotte or Portland, basically. Like Baisley at 5,600 looks good here, but like I think I'd rather play PJ Washington for $700 less. If we're talking priorities, I'd rather play Kelly Oubre. So yeah, like those guys, I think they're good plays. I think they're also going to be lower owned than Charlotte, which is nice. But I don't think anything from Oklahoma City is going to be like my highest owned guy or anything like that.
How are you reading into the Derek Favors minutes from their last game?
Curious to see who starts.
Yeah, likewise.
Didn't expect Muscala, I don't know, Muscala is still out.
Yeah, didn't expect Favors to get 26 minutes that last time out.
Yeah, me neither.
Let's say Derek Favors is starting. Are you giving him 24 minutes?
Yeah, I guess 24-ish. Like last game, my guess was
$3,300 center. Like that's a thing then, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not bad. Yeah, like last game, I think I projected 20 minutes to Favors, 20 to Diakite, and then Baisley playing the other 8. Basically got the minutes between Favors and Diakite correct. Just they were not split the way I expected them to be.
You and me both. It wasn't fun. Favorite Oklahoma City Thunder play from DraftKings?
Baisley? Or like if God, I can't bring myself to say Favors. I think it's Baisley.
Okay. I mean, I think it might be Favors if we know he's starting. That's up in the air at this point. And it doesn't have to be like he could start and still play 12 minutes. There's no rhyme or reason to what they're doing here. Yeah, it's probably Baisley for me, which is also not fun, but just playing massive minutes. Take my chances here for it.
Yeah, getting some center minutes too, which is good.
Yeah. Also complicating for your Derek Favors minutes as well. Yeah. Let's see.
I think that I could be misremembering, but I think Oklahoma City said that they're open to starting Baisley at center at some point in the future also. So he's another one that, potentially you get the starting lineup and it's like Kenrich Williams and Baisley or something.
Yeah, well, it's also possible that Kenrich Williams isn't on Oklahoma City in the next 24 hours, so we shall see there too. Keep your eyes on a team like Oklahoma City because they are a dumping ground for additional salary, and there's no telling who could possibly go back out.
Yeah, they like acquiring draft picks, so
they do. They have a few moving forward. Yeah. Anything else here for the Thunder?
Nope.
No House Advantage is the presenting sponsor of this show. You can get a $25 deposit on your first deposit. You can get a $25 bonus on your first deposit if you use the promo code Awesemo. This is all peer-to-peer prop-based contest. You're taking a stack of props and you are ranking them on a confidence interval. So your favorite is worth 10 points. Your next favorite is 9, then 8, 7, 6, down the line to 1. You're trying to accrue the most points. These days around the trade deadline are great for situations like this where you're trying to take player props because when somebody gets ruled in or out, these props don't move. They're static. So whatever they are right now, that's what they'll be at the end of the day. You can find a lot of additional value for No House Advantage just by checking out those props. Like who stands out right now? Kobe White. All right, 14.5 points. That actually feels about right for Kobe White. PJ Washington, 11.5 points, 5.5 boards. I think there's something to be found there, considering the amount of minutes we would expect him to play today. We can certainly see a Laker guy get ruled out later today. We could certainly see, Sacramento guys potentially ruled out. Don't really know for sure how they're going to be lining up in lineups today. We've got the Utah Jazz side of this one. We've got a lot of up in the air stuff with their center rotation. So lots of different ways that we can go on No House Advantage today. I'm going to try to hit Adam with one prop. Which one to me stands out as the most interesting prop to get to? LaMelo over 7.5 rebounds seems pretty damn good to me. Khem Birch under 7.5 points seems pretty likely.
Yeah.
Khem Birch under basically everything, considering he plays like 6 minutes. I think Khem Birch under 7.5 points or under 5.5 rebounds would be the easiest stuff to get to, in my opinion.
Yeah, agreed.
All righty. Well, let's move it on to the Los Angeles. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Alex tweeted something and I couldn't figure out what the hell he was talking about. So I was just like thinking about his tweet and not listening to you. And then I tried to like come back and figure out where we were. And you're like talking about the Lakers, then you're talking about the Kings, then you're talking about like Minnesota. I'm just like, what the hell game are we on? And what is he about to ask me?
Just finishing up a little No House Advantage read here. The Lakers are 7.5 point favorites in Portland. We are pulling a bit of ownership to LeBron James right now, 15 on DraftKings, 20 on FanDuel. I still prefer Anthony Davis to LeBron, although 80 is up to 11-2 on FanDuel. I don't have much of a preference actually between the two, but the just center only thing on DK kind of sucks. I don't mind Russ for 7,600 on FanDuel. But the big question is, one, do you think we get everybody here on the back-to-back? And two, what do you want to do with it, considering Portland is likely shorthanded?
I assume we get everybody. I don't think they're really in a position to like be giving guys the day off at this point. So for now, I'm assuming we get them. I think LeBron and Davis both look good. I think that everybody else looks shitty. It's not basically.
I'm kind of with you. Like, I understand how you get to a little bit of Monk, or you roll the dice on Ariza, Talen Horton-Tucker, of which one of those guys is going to get the 30 minutes. But God, it's bleak here in LA right now. FanDuel makes it a little bit more interesting. Like, Russ is 7,600 there. That makes him a guy that you have to get to. 9,200 makes it a lot easier to just not try to play him.
Even if on FanDuel, like if he's not going to be closing games, he doesn't look that
I'm
good.
not saying I like it, but he's not like a cross off like he is at 9,200.
Yeah, for sure. Like if Russ plays 32 to 34 minutes, it probably means he's playing well and he's probably beating that salary. But I mean, if even, a month or two ago, if you say Russ is 7,600, you're just saying, yeah, he hasn't been great, but, jamming him in the lineups. The playing time, though, is the issue. Like, if you knew that he was still just going to play 34 minutes, you're taking your chances. It's just the fact that he's not closing very frequently.
Let's remember, no matter how bad we think Russ is in real basketball, and it's bad, 1.06 FanDuel points per minute over the last 30 days. He's still a fantasy point per minute guy. And the minutes could be there. 14% owned too. I'm not advocating, like, I think he's owned appropriately if you think that he can close. I slightly prefer AD to LeBron, but the price tag has become pretty problematic. There's not a lot to love here for the Lakers.
He's played 18 games, Russ, that is, with Davis and LeBron active this year. He's at 1.04 FanDuel points per minute in 35 minutes per game. So that's kind of the thing. Like, if you knew if you could count on those 35 minutes, then he'd be fairly priced or a little underpriced. But it's the fact that, like, you can't count on those at all.
No, you cannot. You cannot. This team is disgusting. We get a lot of questions too, like, hey, what can the Lakers do at the deadline? I was like, I don't know. I hope the entire arena implodes while they're in it. Like, they don't have anything. There's no answers. Somebody was like, somebody asked me on the earlier show today, would I do Russ and a pick for John Wall if you're the Lakers? And it's just like, why? Like, you're also not winning shit if you make that trade. Like, why give up anything? Like, I think Russ is just stuck on this team. Otherwise, I don't know what the real answer is.
Yeah. I still would like him to somehow just end up on Washington for nothing, just because they'd be more entertaining to watch.
Yeah. It's
especially with Beal out now.
Yeah, pour one out for Beal there. That's not fun.
Yeah, I don't even know what I like. It would suck if he's done with Washington, but I also don't. I kind of just would like them to blow it up at this point.
Well, it would have been a lot easier to blow it up by trading him when he was healthy.
It would, yeah.
Chris G says Russ for Simmons. The Lakers would do that shit in a nanosecond if they could.
That would be a fun one just to get Lofty's reaction. Like, how much does he hate Ben Simmons?
Oh my God. No, he would never want that deal to happen. No. Just because you can get something better than that. Yeah, exactly. All right, let's talk Portland now. David Porter. Whatever Shaq is saying in that instance, it's not true. The Lakers don't want a low seed. It's not a plan. They're not planning to be shitty.
Yeah, no, the team is not good.
Yeah, no. None of this is the ruse that they're trying to put forth. All right.
So for Portland, like the main reason that is because coming into the season, it was very obvious that this team was not very good.
No one tries to get a low seed
right
ever in anything. That's just not how that works. Portland. My assumption is we are seeing nobody from the Pelican side of this one, from the Pelican side of the trade. So I think we're getting the same 9 guys we had yesterday for Portland. Where do you land?
I agree with you.
Okay. There's 30% ownership or more going to Simons, Nurkic, Winslow, Ellaby on FanDuel. They're all pretty heavily owned on DraftKings. I think McLemore and Watford are both available for you on DK. Who stands out as your best Portland options?
So they're different today. Like, they look good. They don't look nearly as good as yesterday because the cheap guys all got priced up on DraftKings by like $1,000 to $1,500. So good job DraftKings being quick with that. But I still think, looking at a $4,500 Winslow, a $4,400 Ellaby, those guys both look pretty good. You got 33 minutes from Winslow last night. I wasn't sure he physically could do that. Apparently he can. So
can he do it on a back-to-back? That's
a legitimate question. I guess they can't rest him, but if he's starting, I assume you're still getting like 30 minutes. But I don't feel super confident in that. But I don't really know what else to do there. LB played 34 minutes. I think those guys both still look like good values. Watford at 3,100 played 20 minutes yesterday. I think that was that's about what I expected. So he played basically 6 minutes alongside Nurkic. The rest without Nurkic on the floor. 3,100. He looks like a good point per dollar value. Ben McLemore, I think, is behind Winslow and Ellaby for me, but still just a good cheap value option. Should play 30 to 32 minutes. So they're not the glaring values that they were yesterday, where like you're just jamming them into every lineup. But I still think they're some of the better, sub 5K point per dollar value options.
It's going to be a wild team.
Interested to see what happens with Dennis Smith Jr.'s ownership. Right now he's at 4%. And I think he played less yesterday than I think people were expecting. He played about 21 minutes. I think that I'd given him like 24. I wasn't very confident in it, but I didn't really know what they would do. If he's not going to get ownership here, I do like him in tournaments because he's a point per minute guy. If he plays 20 minutes, he's probably decent at 4,100. But if, for example, Justice Winslow plays 26 to 28 minutes instead of 33 on the second half of a back-to-back, there's a decent chance Dennis Smith Jr. is picking up a few extra minutes as well.
They have no loyalty to anybody on this team right now other than Simons and Nurkic. Anyone can play additional minutes. There's no reason. DSJ could play 28 minutes today. It wouldn't look weird at all, and you'd want to have him in those cases.
Somebody said Ellaby's price went down 1,000. He was 3,400 last night.
Yeah. CJ Ellaby was not 5,400 on DraftKings yesterday. Yeah, that would be a tough sell. That would be a tough one. Yeah, we just have to play a ton of Portland. So Portland, I think, looks a little bit different than Charlotte in that, not that I'm saying that I want to have 4 guys from Portland, but if you have Simons, Nurkic, Ellaby, McLemore, that's a different 4 than grabbing 4 from the Hornets.
Yeah, it's a shitty 4. Yeah, I think I'm still probably capping Portland at 3. Like, they're just because the prices came up and because of who they are. Like CJ Ellaby without McCollum and Lillard is around a 0.8 fantasy point per minute guy. McLemore is 3/4 of a fantasy point per minute. Like, if they play 32 to 34 minutes, they're probably scoring, on average, they're scoring like 24, 25 points. If they were 3K or 3,400 like they were yesterday, I'm fine just having a bunch of those guys. And then, it allows me to pay up for other guys. But at their I think they're expensive enough now where like I don't want to just be jamming in all of them.
Yeah. I just think the path is easier for Portland than it is in Charlotte. That's really just the.
Yeah, I mean they're still cheaper. Like if it's easier because you can get to like 30 to 35 DraftKings points just with like a couple of extra steals or blocks or whatever, like stats that don't take anything away from your teammates. When you're talking about $8,800 LaMelo or $7,800 Bridges, it's really tough for them to put up the game that you need without them scoring a bunch of points. And if they're scoring a bunch of actual points, it means somebody else on their team isn't. So your two options are either the teammates don't do quite as good or the game is just massively high scoring and you kind of just want all the pieces from both sides.
Who is your favorite Portland piece? I know what the answer is. I just don't trust it. Oh, you went Simons. Interesting. Okay. I thought the answer, to me, the answer is Winslow, but I have no confidence in that answer.
Yeah.
Like if Winslow's going to play 30 minutes again, it's Winslow.
Yeah. I mean, like I don't know. I trust Simons' minutes more. He's a 1.08 fantasy point per minute guy without McCollum and Lillard. The matchup is good. Yeah, it's kind of just to me they're like two different things. Like Simons is the one that I like the most. I think that he's underpriced to 7,300. I love the ceiling that he offers. In terms of who's going to be the easiest to get into lineups, it's probably Winslow.
Yeah. To me, it's Winslow 1, Ellaby then 2. Winslow pairs really easily with the Hornets, whereas Simons is sort of like a Hornet pivot in a way.
Yeah. Cantor said Winslow may not even play. I mean, yeah, it's, I guess, possible they rest him on a back-to-back. They would have like 8 players. I think it's more likely that I think the bigger risk is that he plays and that he just plays less and they don't tell anybody. That's my concern. But I also, so like I'm not going to project him for 33 minutes, but even if you give him 28 to 30, he's going to look pretty good. Obviously, if we get news that he's out, then everybody on Portland looks better because they just lost 30 minutes.
Going to be a weird one here for Portland, and that's a 10 o'clock start. So have fun with that, everybody. We'll go to Minnesota.
What happens? I don't know if you even know the answer to this. So because of like the trades that they made and like Keon Johnson and Bledsoe being hurt, like they're obviously limited. Are they just like not allowed to trade anyone right now? Like,
okay, so technically,
you get what I'm asking? Like, if they trade 2 players today, they can't play this game.
They would just have to call like Keon Johnson and Damian Lillard as active,
you know? Right? Yeah.
But in theory, yeah. But if we're being technical, CJ McCollum, Larry Nance, and Tony Snell are still on the Blazers. They could also be the people that are
active. Yeah.
Yeah. Because from everything that I've seen, that trade has not gone through. And I don't expect it to go through until tomorrow because you don't rush that through. You try to like aggregate additional trade pieces and potentially down the line. So
yeah, so you can get. Yeah, I still remember the Memphis game from like 2016 where
they played 6 guys.
They had 6 guys like available to play.
Yeah. So I assume they're not trading anybody else.
Idiot. What'd you say?
Oh yeah, they're highly owned, man. They're bad plays.
Yeah, exactly. Because that is how I thought about DFS in 2016.
I don't know, you should hate yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate myself anyway, but it's even worse when I hate myself for actual reasons.
I hate myself for plenty of things I did in 2016. Fading Memphis is at the top.
Yeah. Minnesota Timberwolves are 9-point favorites in Sacramento, 232 total. And for a team that had basically just had 27 questionable tags on everybody, normally Minnesota's just fully healthy. They have a Q tag on McKinley Wright. That's a gentleman that I'm not entirely sure played for Minnesota yet this season. So not so sure that one's going to matter. To me, Anthony Edwards on FanDuel at 7,400 is the best option in this game. Russell for 7K on DraftKings, not too shabby. $9,700 Towns, not too shabby. Beverly, honestly, 5,100 across both sites, looking solid. It's a great spot against Sacramento, that's for sure.
Yeah, obviously some risk that somebody ends up sitting here on the back-to-back. They were basically all questionable yesterday, but assuming they're in, they just look good across the board. It's another team where I don't think you're looking at any one guy and saying like, oh, this is a clear priority. Like, for example, I think D'Angelo Russell looks very good at 7K. I think Anthony Simons at 7,300 looks better. But there's clearly a very high ceiling for Russell. Towns at 9,700 looks good. No issues with Beverly or Edwards. Vanderbilt at low ownership is always appealing to me because of his rebounding opportunities. So just a team that I like getting to, kind of mixing and matching these guys.
Red Skittles in chat says, a woman I've never seen before in my life just motioned me to roll down my window and threw a Bowberry biscuit through it. I'm shipping a GPP today. I don't even know what to do that. It's like an old Grey Poupon commercial. It was in the container. It wasn't even just like the biscuit, like a baseball. She threw it in the box. What? Who would waste a Bowberry biscuit like that too, by the way?
I don't even know what that is.
Bojangles.
Yeah, okay.
I've never eaten the South. Staple of the South.
Yeah, I mean, I know what it is.
I never cared about it. Like, that wasn't my hangover drunk food back in the day.
You go to Zaxby's?
We do have a Zaxby's.
I never went there either. That was just what I remember from the South.
Sure. So like, I was never a Bojangles guy. That was not the way that I tried to stave off a hangover. But when I met my wife and like all of her friends that have been down here forever, it was just like, oh no, we got to go to Bojangles. That's like, this is the only thing that we do. And you just stuff your face with chicken biscuits and everything.
We have Bojangles in Maryland.
Yeah. I mean, like, I assume they're in Pennsylvania. I have no idea. But I was always just either a leftover pizza guy or like a Burger King guy for breakfast or a McDonald's guy for breakfast. I was never a Bojangles guy. So it's not really my cup of tea. Not that I don't want to eat it because it's delicious, clearly. All right. Now we go to Sacramento.
From the looks of it, she already has a Valentine and it's meth.
That sounds like one of our responses.
Yeah.
And Fidel, he can't eat it. No one should eat. You have no idea what has been done to that Bowberry biscuit. Just go buy one. They're $1, I think. Sacramento. I'm assuming that this is not going to be a Sacramento team that has any of the pieces coming from Indiana today. Could be wrong. Just don't expect it, which means we're getting the same Sacramento lineup that we got yesterday. We have no idea what the status of Rashawn Holmes is, who sat out the first game yesterday for personal reasons. I assume those personal reasons are that they're trying to trade him. So I don't know if Holmes plays today. I don't know if Marvin Bagley plays today. I don't really know what to do with Sacramento. De'Aaron Fox had missed 8 straight games. He played the front end of the back-to-back, played 35 and a half minutes. I don't know if he's playing a back-to-back. What the hell do we do with Sacramento today?
Yeah, and don't forget Mo Harkless left yesterday's game after like 9.5 minutes. So
yeah,
who knows? It's a team where hopefully we get some reports throughout the day of what they're doing. I mean, obviously, whenever they release an injury report, that'll be helpful because we should get word on if Fox is resting and on Harkless's status. If Fox, I mean, it's so difficult to talk about right now. Like, there's going to be pieces you like from Sacramento. If everybody is in who was in yesterday, so Bagley out, Harkless in, Fox in, Holmes out. Jones looks fantastic at 3,700 if he's starting. Len at 3,200 as the backup is reasonable. Fox, Mitchell, Barnes all look fine. Harkless at 3,800 looks okay.
I think Metu's the best play on the team if it breaks that way.
I don't think so.
Not
if Harkless is in. If Harkless is out, I agree. If Harkless and Bagley are out, I agree. Like, how many minutes do you think Metu plays if Harkless is in?
I don't know.
He played like 11 and a half. What'd you say?
28?
He played like 11 or 12 in the first half yesterday.
But are they just immediately trying to give more minutes to Robert Woodard, Lewis King, Jameis Ramsey? Or is it just like Metu gets it, they move Harkless down a little bit more?
I mean, Ramsey was
more
the first
of the
guy
guys
off the bench
that play
yesterday.
all the time.
Ramsey was the first guy.
I wish I knew. 28 minutes of Metu I like a lot.
I think I had a 24-minute projection on Metu yesterday. That's where I would go if Harkless is in. If Harkless and Bagley are out, I assume Metu's starting just like he started the second half, and then he plays a ton, and he looks fantastic. If Harkless is in and Bagley is out, you can still play Metu at 4,200. Like 24 minutes, he can still destroy that salary, but it's riskier. If Harkless is out and Bagley is out, then he looks great.
He is the highest owned king right now.
Yeah, so that's if Harkless is in, that's a spot where, like, again, it's not like a comfortable spot to be under the field because he still projects pretty well. But I think that people are possibly overreacting to the fact he played 33 minutes yesterday.
I gave him 28 for the game. I do have Harkless in as well. I think that we could just see slightly less from the other side, or the other like garbage dudes, but legitimately I have no idea. And they are the most impossible team to talk about right now. Somebody asked Red Skittles if she was hot, and he said she was not hot, nor was the biscuit. Oh, that's great. Hit the like button if you haven't yet. 600 people in here, 150 likes. Hit the like for Red Skittles since he got hit with a Bowberry biscuit today from a stranger. Look, watch the deeper dive in Live Before Lock. We don't have the information on Sacramento to talk about this any further. So let's close this out. Golden State Warriors, 3-point underdogs in Utah. For Golden State, we've got Clay sitting out the front end of the back-to-back. No Draymond. Q tag on Looney, which is massive. No Iggy, no Wiseman, no Bielitsa. I like Steph for 9,500 on FanDuel. I like Jordan Poole for 5,800 on DraftKings. I don't like all that much else for the Warriors. I think you're going to need Looney to be out to really open something up.
Yeah, kind of just guys that look decent. You're never going to be upset about getting the Steph, the upside that he has. Poole at 5,800 without Clay looks fine. Wiggins at 6,300 looks fine. But there's nothing that really stands out to me here.
Yeah, I think we're on the same page. I mean, Poole stands out a little bit more to me than I thought you would like him a little bit more than you did.
Yeah, I think he's a good play. It's just when you compare him to other guys on the slate, like I would rather be going to Oubre at 5,600.
Fair.
I could also see, I haven't built lineups yet, but I could see where it's kind of a weird price point because you can, when you think about it in terms of roster construction, because like he looks pretty good at 5,800, but is your lineup going to look better if you either go down to one of the, Portland guys, like Winslow or Ellaby, and then, upgrade somewhere else, going from, like a Poole to an Anthony Simons or something like that. So I could just see it sort of being a weird price point.
I don't have anything else to talk about for Golden State. All right, well, let's talk through this one scenario. If Looney doesn't play, are we getting Juan Toscano-Anderson at the starting lineup in $3,500 center?
That would be my guess. And then I have no idea how many minutes he plays.
Yeah. I mean, it's got to be a lot, right? Like they don't have enough. It's got to be him and Kuminga, I assume, are getting a ton of time. They don't really have a ton of options.
If he's out, $4,400 Kuminga, I think is probably actually more interesting to me than $3,500 center only Toscano-Anderson.
Toscano-Anderson, by the way, 4,200 on FanDuel, small forward, power forward. Kuminga, 5,300 on FanDuel. So they don't want you to get to anything from the Warriors no matter what happens. And then we close it out with Utah. Same as what we've had for the most part. Still no Rudy Gobert. Q tag on Rudy Gay. I think Donovan Mitchell for 8,800 and 8,600 is pretty clearly the thing I want to get the most of for the Jazz. How are you handling Mitchell and the rest of Utah?
I think Mitchell still looks really good at 8,600. Just his salary dropped while he was out with the concussion, and it's not really moving. So I think that he looks good. We got almost 36 minutes from him last game. After the game, he said he was absolutely exhausted and that he kind of just had to will himself to play through it. But clearly, he's not on any sort of minutes limit. So I think he looks good. I'm assuming at this point that that Azubuike is just staying in the starting lineup. He started again last game. He played well. They were just raving about him basically after the game. So I'm assuming he's staying in the starting lineup. I don't think he plays 28 minutes necessarily. Whiteside fouled out in 20 minutes last game. They played Whiteside 14 minutes in the first half. I think that barring foul trouble, you're probably still getting like 22 minutes for Azubuike, 26 for Whiteside, something like that. But I am not taking the same approach as the other day where I assume Whiteside starts. That said, he's down to 5,400. If he plays 26 minutes, he's still going to look pretty good at low ownership.
For sure. Is there anything else we need to touch on from the Utah Jazz?
I don't think so.
GPP video, injury video, deeper dive later today for you?
Yep.
There it is, everybody. Keep your eyes on the news. Make sure you're following at Awesemo NBA because you don't want to miss anything. There could be trades all day, and we would have no idea. We have tons of injury news that we need to wait on for teams like Portland and Sacramento. So keep your eyes peeled there. Good luck, everybody, tonight. Win that money. We'll do it all again tomorrow, but make sure you're watching everything for the rest of the day. Tons of content. NFL Strategy Show is next.